The first thing that tipped me off wasn't fear. It was silence. Not the peaceful kind either, the wrong kind. The kind that presses against your ears and makes your chest tighten for no clear reason. I was standing at the sink, early afternoon light slanting through the kitchen window, when I realized the house was too still. No cartoons murmuring from the living room, no little footsteps padding across the hardwood, no humming. My granddaughter, Lily, was never this quiet. "Lily?" I called, keeping my voice casual. Nothing. I dried my hands slowly, already feeling that familiar pull in my gut, the instinct you learn after decades of motherhood and grandmotherhood, the one that doesn't shout, it whispers, and when it does, you listen. I walked down the hallway and peeked into the living room. Lily was asleep on the couch. That part alone wasn't strange. She was 9. School drained her. But it was the way she was asleep that stopped me cold. Her mouth slightly open, her lashes resting too heavy on her cheeks, her arms folded stiffly across her chest like she'd been placed that way. Too still. Beside her sat the woman my daughter had hired 3 months earlier, the after-school sitter. Quiet, polite, always smiling in that careful, professional way. She looked up at me and smiled wider. "She had a long day," she said softly. "I made her some calming tea, helped her rest." Calming tea. The words landed wrong. I nodded anyway, because that's what women my age do first. We observe. We store things away. We don't panic yet. "Was she feeling sick?" I asked. "Oh, no," the sitter said quickly. "Just a little wound up. This helps her settle." I looked back at Lily. Her chest rose and fell slowly, too slowly. "How often does she drink this tea?" I asked. The sitter didn't hesitate. "Every day." That was when the whisper in my chest turned sharp. Every day. I smiled, because I've learned how to smile through discomfort, through suspicion, through moments when your world tilts, but you don't want anyone to notice. "Well," I said lightly, "I'm home early today. You can head out." She gathered her bag fast, too fast, slinging it over her shoulder like she'd been waiting for permission to leave. "Of course," she said softly. "I'll see you tomorrow." The door closed behind her with a soft click. I stood there for a moment staring at the empty space she'd occupied. Then I moved. I knelt beside the couch and brushed Lily's hair back gently. "Baby," I whispered. No response. I touched her wrist. Her skin was warm, her pulse steady, but something about the heaviness of her sleep made my throat tighten. She stirred slightly, her lips moving. "Do I have to drink it tomorrow?" she murmured. My heart dropped straight into my stomach. "Drink what, sweetheart?" I asked softly. Her eyes fluttered open just a crack. "The tea," she whispered, "the one that makes me good." I sat back on my heels, the room feeling smaller. "What tea, Lily?" I asked, keeping my voice calm even as my hands began to shake. She frowned, confused. "The special one," she said. "It helps me not be too much." Too much. I pulled her into my arms then, held her tight, breathed her in like I needed to memorize the moment. Because right then, I knew something was wrong. And whatever it was, it had already been happening longer than I wanted to admit. That night, I didn't sleep. Lily did, deep and heavy, the way she had been sleeping lately. But I lay awake in the guest room staring at the ceiling fan as it cut slow circles through the dark. The one that makes me good. Children don't invent phrases like that on their own. Sometime after midnight, I got up quietly and went to Lily's room. I watched her for a long moment. Her face looked peaceful, but there was something else there, too. A faint tension around her eyes, like her body didn't fully trust rest anymore. I sat on the edge of her bed and brushed my thumb across her knuckles. "Lily," I whispered, "Grandma's here." Her eyes opened slowly. "Did I do something bad?" she asked immediately. That question hit harder than any accusation ever could. "No," I said, firm now, "absolutely not. Why would you think that?" She hesitated. Kids always hesitate before telling the truth when an adult has trained them to doubt it. "She says the tea helps me be calm so I don't make things harder for you or for Mom." I swallowed. "And if you don't drink it?" She shrugged, eyes drifting to the wall. "She gets quiet, says I'm being difficult, says good girls don't fight routines." Routines. I'd raised a daughter. I'd worked in a library for 35 years. I knew how words could shape behavior, how repetition could carve obedience into a child's bones. "Does she ever tell you what's in the tea?" I asked. Lily shook her head. "She pours it from a bottle she keeps in her bag, brown bottle, no label. She makes me drink all of it." My stomach turned. "How does it make you feel?" Lily thought for a moment. "Floaty," she said, "like my arms are heavy. Sometimes my head feels far away, and then I sleep." Every word landed like a small crack forming in glass. I kissed her forehead. "You don't have to drink that anymore," I said quietly. Her eyes widened, not with relief, but fear. "She'll be mad." That did it. I tucked Lily in, turned on her nightlight, and waited until her breathing evened out again. Then I went back to the kitchen, opened my laptop, and started searching. I looked up the sitter's name, her credentials, her past work. Everything was clean. Too clean. Degrees, references, smiling headshot photos that now made my skin crawl. At 2:17 a.m., I closed the laptop. This wasn't something I could confirm with a Google search. I needed to see it. The next morning, I called in sick to work for the first time in years, told the sitter I had errands to run but would be home earlier than usual. Then I waited. At 3:12 p.m., Lily's school bus dropped her off like always. I parked my car down the street instead of in the driveway and walked back quietly, letting myself in through the side door. Their voices floated from the living room. Normal, casual, laughing. I stood just out of sight, heart pounding so loudly I was sure they could hear it. Then I heard the words that confirmed everything. "All right, sweetheart," the sitter said gently. "You know the routine." And something cold settled deep in my chest. Because routines aren't supposed to make children afraid. And whatever came next, I knew I wasn't going to like it. I stayed frozen in the hallway, my back pressed lightly against the wall, every muscle locked in place. "Do I really have to today?" Lily asked. Her voice was small, smaller than it should have been for a child who used to talk nonstop about school projects and playground drama. "Yes," the sitter replied, still gentle but firmer now, controlled. "You know why." There was a pause. I held my breath. "Because Grandma gets tired," Lily said quietly, "and Mom's busy." "That's right," the sitter said, "and you want to be helpful, don't you?" I felt something twist hard inside me. I leaned forward just enough to see through the narrow gap between the wall and the doorframe. The sitter set a mug on the coffee table, steam curled up lazily, like this was the most normal thing in the world. Then she reached into her bag and pulled out a small brown bottle. No label. My fingers curled into fists. She unscrewed the cap and tipped the bottle carefully, counting drops under her breath. 1, 2, 3, more than 3. Then she stirred the mug with a spoon and slid it toward Lily. "All of it," she said. "Good girls finish." Lily hesitated, her small hands wrapped around the mug like it might bite her. I almost stepped out then, almost blew everything wide open right there, but instinct told me to wait, to see it through, to know exactly what I was dealing with. Lily took a sip, her face scrunched up. "It tastes bad," she murmured. "That's why we add honey," the sitter said, smiling as she drizzled more in. "Drink." Lily obeyed. Every swallow felt like a punch to my ribs. Within minutes, 15 at most, I watched my granddaughter's shoulders slump, her blinks slowed, her head tipped to one side like it was too heavy to hold up. "There we go," the sitter murmured, nice and calm. Then she guided Lily to the couch and tucked a blanket around her with practiced ease, too practiced. Then she did something that made my blood run cold. She sat down in my daughter's armchair, pulled out her phone, and pointed the camera at Lily. Not one quick photo, several. She adjusted the blanket, moved Lily's hair away from her face, tilted the phone slightly, steadying the angle. That was it. I stepped into the room. "What do you think you're doing?" The sitter jumped so hard the phone slipped from her hands and clattered onto the floor. Her face drained of color. "Oh, Mrs. Collins," she stammered, "I thought you were still out." I walked straight past her and scooped the phone up before she could reach it. "You drug my granddaughter," I said, my voice shaking despite every effort to keep it steady, "and now you're taking pictures of her while she's unconscious." "She's not unconscious," she quickly said. "She's just resting. It's herbal, completely safe." I didn't look at her. I looked at the phone screen, at the photos. My hand started shaking for real then. I turned back to her slowly. "You're done, right now." Her composure cracked. "Please," she said, lowering her voice, "just let me explain." "Oh," I replied, pulling my phone from my pocket, "you're going to." And as I dialed, I had no idea what she was about to confess would tear open a truth buried for decades. But I knew one thing for certain. This wasn't about tea. She reached for my arm, not hard, just enough to stop me. "Please," she said again, "if you call anyone right now, you'll ruin everything." I looked down at her hand like it didn't belong to a human being. "Take your hand off me," I said. She did, slowly. Lily didn't stir on the couch. That alone made my stomach turn. I glanced at her chest again, counting the rise and fall, grounding myself before I did something reckless. "What's in the bottle?" I asked. The sitter swallowed. Her eyes flicked toward her bag, then back to me. "It's just something to help her relax," she said. "Parents give kids things like that all the time." "Not without permission," I snapped, "and not every single day." She opened her mouth, then closed it again. Whatever confidence she'd been wearing cracked right down the middle. "I wasn't hurting her," she said finally. "I'd never hurt her." "Then why hide it?" I asked. Silence. I crossed the room, picked up her bag, and reached inside before she could stop me. My fingers closed around the bottle, small, brown, warm from being handled too often. The label had been peeled off clean. That told me everything. "I'm calling the police," I said. Her knees buckled. She dropped into the chair like the word had taken the strength right out of her body. "No," she whispered. "Please, you don't understand." "I understand plenty," I said. "You drugged a child, my child." "She's not your child," she shot back suddenly, anger flaring through the panic. "She's your granddaughter." I stared at her. "That distinction won't help you," I said. Her face twisted then, not with fear, but something darker, something old. "You got to live your life. You got everything." The sentence hung there, wrong and heavy. "What are you talking about?" I asked. She laughed once, a brittle sound. "Of course you don't know. Why would you?" I didn't answer. I didn't need to. I could feel the shift happening, the moment where this stopped being about childcare and crossed into something personal. "Your mother worked with your husband." The room tilted. I felt it physically, like the floor dipped beneath my feet. "My husband is dead," I said flatly. "And before that," she continued, her voice gaining strength, "he ruined my mother's life." I said his name out loud then, said it like a shield, like saying it firmly would undo whatever story she was about to tell. She nodded. "He had an affair for years." I shook my head. "No. He promised her things," she went on, "a future, a way out. Then, when she wanted the truth to come out, he threatened her, left her with nothing." I couldn't breathe. The house felt too small, the air too thin. "You're lying," I said, but the words felt weak even to me. She looked at Lily sleeping on the couch. "I wanted you to feel it, what it's like to trust someone and realize too late that they're capable of anything." Rage flooded through me then, clean, hot, protective. "You don't get to teach lessons with a child. You don't get revenge that way." Tears streamed down her face, but her voice stayed steady. "I just needed time," she said. "Time to make you see." I looked at my phone, at the number already dialed. "You've had enough time," I said. And as sirens began to wail faintly in the distance, I realized the truth she dropped at my feet was only the beginning of what I was about to lose. The sirens grew louder, threading their way through the quiet neighborhood like a warning meant only for us. She heard them too. Her shoulders slumped, and for the first time since I'd stepped into the room, she looked small. Not harmless, but exposed, like someone who'd been holding their breath for years and finally ran out of air. "I didn't plan it like this," she said, staring at the floor. "At first, I just wanted to see you, to know what kind of woman you were, if you looked like her." "Like who?" I asked, though I already knew. "My mother." I didn't respond. I didn't trust myself to. She wiped her face with the heel of her hand. "You smile the same way," she went on, "like nothing bad ever touched you." That stung more than I expected. "You don't know anything about my life," I said quietly. She laughed again, bitter this time. "That's the point." Lily shifted on the couch, letting out a soft sound. I moved to her immediately, kneeling beside her, brushing her hair back again. "Stay asleep, baby," I whispered. "Grandma's here." Behind me, the sitter's voice softened. "She won't remember much. That's what the doctor said." I turned so fast my knees hit the table. "What doctor?" I demanded. Her eyes widened. Too late. "You took her to a doctor?" My voice shook now, anger cracking through the control I'd been clinging to. "No," she said quickly, "not like that. I mean, I read about it, researched. It's over the counter. People give it to kids all the time." "You are not people. You're not her family." The sirens stopped. Doors slammed outside, footsteps, voices. I stood and walked to the front door just as the knock came. 2 officers stood on the porch, calm, professional. Thank God. "I need help, now." They followed me inside, and everything came spilling out. The tea, the bottle, the photos, the routine, the words she'd used on my granddaughter like invisible chains. The sitter didn't resist when they turned to me. She didn't argue. She just kept repeating, "I didn't mean to hurt her," like it was a spell that might still work. One of the officers picked up the brown bottle, holding it carefully with gloved hands. "What's in this?" he asked. She hesitated. "Sleep aid and allergy medicine." The officer's jaw tightened. They placed her in handcuffs then. The sound was loud in the quiet room. Final. As they led her out, she turned back to me one last time. "You still don't know what he did. You lived a lie." I didn't answer. I was too busy watching Lily breathe. After they left, the house felt hollow, like something had been ripped out of it. I carried Lily to her bedroom, her body limp and heavy in my arms. She didn't wake, not even when I laid her down and pulled the blanket up to her chin. That terrified me more than anything else. I sat beside her bed until the sky outside shifted from afternoon gold to evening gray. And in that quiet, with my granddaughter sleeping too deeply for comfort, one thought kept repeating in my mind. If even half of what that woman said was true, then the past I thought I understood was about to collapse completely. Lily didn't wake until nearly 7 that evening. When she finally did, it was slow, like she was swimming back up from deep water. Her eyes opened, unfocused at first, then landed on me. "Grandma?" she murmured. I leaned forward instantly. "I'm here, baby." She blinked hard. "Did I miss dinner?" "No," I said gently. "We waited." She frowned. "My head feels weird." I hated that sentence, hated how normal it had become for her. I helped her sit up, brought her a glass of water I'd poured myself and hadn't let out of my sight for even a second. She drank it cautiously, watching me the whole time. "She's gone, right?" Lily asked quietly. My heart cracked again. "Yes," I said. "She's gone. She won't be coming back." Lily nodded, but she didn't relax, not fully. "She's going to be mad," she whispered. "No," I said firmly. "She doesn't get to be mad at you. Ever." I wrapped my arms around her, and this time she held on tight. Later that night, after Lily finally fell into a more natural sleep, I sat alone at the kitchen table with the brown bottle sealed inside an evidence bag the police had left with me for the morning. I stared at it for a long time. Then I cried. Not loud, not dramatic, just the kind of quiet crying you do when you realize how close you came to missing something that could have changed a child forever. Around midnight, I opened the hall closet and pulled out a box I hadn't touched in years. Old paperwork, old photos, things I'd saved because I didn't know how to throw them away. I found his old laptop near the bottom. I told myself I was just looking for reassurance, something to prove the sitter was lying, that grief and bitterness had twisted her memories into something false. The laptop powered on slowly. I didn't even have to search long. Emails, archived, years old. And there it was, a name I hadn't spoken in decades, a tone I recognized instantly. Affection, familiarity, promises that weren't meant for me. I closed the laptop with shaking hands. The house felt different after that, like it had shifted quietly while I wasn't looking. The next morning, I took Lily to the pediatrician. I brought everything. The bottle, the photos, my notes scribbled on scrap paper because I didn't trust my memory anymore. The doctor was calm, but her eyes darkened as she listened. "This could have been much worse," she said. "Given daily, this combination can affect a child's developing system, especially emotionally." I nodded, numb. "She may have trouble trusting adults for a while. That's common." Trust. That word followed me all the way home, because by then, it wasn't just Lily's trust that had been broken. Mine had too, and I had the sinking feeling that the consequences of what we'd uncovered were only just beginning. My daughter came home 2 days later. She didn't fly in calmly. She didn't land with grace or patience. She came apart the moment she stepped through the front door and saw Lily curled up on the couch beside me, clutching her favorite blanket like it was armor. "I should have been here," she said, her voice breaking before she even finished the sentence. I stood up and wrapped my arms around her, but she was already shaking. "You couldn't have known," I said, though the words felt thin even as I spoke them. She pulled back, eyes red and wild. "I trusted her. I trusted you both. I left my child." "You left her with family," I said firmly, and the moment something felt wrong, it stopped. But guilt doesn't listen to reason. That night, Lily slept between us, a 9-year-old curled tight like she was afraid the bed might drift away from her. Every time my daughter shifted, Lily stirred. "Is she checking my drink?" Lily whispered once in the dark. "Yes," my daughter said immediately. "Always." I watched my child become a mother all over again in real time, fierce, focused, heartbroken. The legal process started fast. Interviews, statements, dates written on calendars like threats. The sitter's name printed in black ink on official documents made everything feel heavier, more real. Then came the call, the one I'd been dreading without knowing it. A detective asked if I'd be willing to come in and answer more questions about my late husband. My chest tightened. "They found a connection," he said carefully, "something that may explain motive." I agreed before I could think better of it. At the station, they showed me things I hadn't seen yet, messages, timelines, employment overlap, a history that ran parallel to my marriage without ever crossing into my line of sight. Years, not weeks, not months, years. I sat there listening, nodding, breathing, while something inside me quietly folded in on itself. When I got home, I went straight to the bedroom and opened the drawer where I'd kept my wedding ring since his death. I stared at it for a long time. I didn't cry this time. I just took it off. Lily watched me do it from the doorway. "Does that mean you're mad at Grandpa?" she asked softly. I knelt in front of her. "It means I'm choosing honesty now." She thought about that, then nodded like she understood more than a child should. That night, I couldn't stop thinking about how harm doesn't always come from strangers. Sometimes it arrives dressed as help. Sometimes it smiles. And sometimes it waits years to show its true shape. The trial didn't start right away. There were weeks of waiting first, weeks where nothing looked different from the outside, but everything felt fragile underneath. Like a house after an earthquake, still standing but cracked in places you didn't yet know how to fix. Lily started asking questions in small, careful ways. "Can teachers give kids medicine?" "No." "Can someone make you drink something if you don't want to?" "No." "What if they say it's for your own good?" That one always stopped me. I'd take a breath, choose my words like stepping across broken glass. "Then you ask another grown-up, and if you still feel weird about it, you tell me or your mom. Always." She nodded, but her eyes stayed serious. My daughter canceled her work contract. No debates, no second thoughts. She took a local job that paid less and came with fewer promises, and she never once complained. Nothing matters more than her feeling safe, she said, and she meant it. The sitter's lawyer reached out, asking for leniency, trauma, family history, mental health, all the words that try to soften what can't be softened. I listened without responding, because every time Lily hesitated before drinking water, every time she sniffed her juice before taking a sip, all I could think was, you don't get to explain that away. When the trial finally began, the courtroom felt too cold, too bright, too public. I sat in the front row with my daughter beside me, our knees almost touching. Lily wasn't there. She was with a counselor, drawing pictures and learning how to trust again. The sitter looked different without her practiced smile, smaller, tired. But when she glanced at me, there was still something sharp in her eyes. Anger, or maybe disappointment that I hadn't broken the way she expected. They played recordings, read statements, showed timelines. They talked about daily administration, about unauthorized substances, about psychological conditioning, clinical words for something deeply personal. Then they talked about my husband. Emails were read aloud, promises he never kept, a second life built quietly in the margins of my own. I kept my face still. Inside, something old finally let go. During a break, a woman approached me in the hallway. She looked worn down, like life had scraped against her too many times. "I'm her mother," she said softly. I looked at her, really looked. "I'm sorry," she added. "I didn't know." I believed she didn't know, but belief didn't bring forgiveness with it. "Your daughter hurt a child," I said calmly. "That's where this ends for me." She nodded, tears filling her eyes, and walked away. Back in the courtroom, I realized something quietly powerful. I wasn't here for revenge. I was here to make sure the truth stayed standing when everything else tried to bend it. And as the judge called the room to order again, I knew the hardest part still hadn't come. Because accountability, I was learning, hurts everyone it touches, even the ones who deserve it. The verdict didn't come quickly. Days passed where the jury disappeared behind closed doors, and we were left suspended in that awful space between knowing and not knowing. Every morning, my daughter and I dressed like we were going somewhere ordinary. Every afternoon, we came home drained, quiet, holding our breath. Lily asked less during that time. She watched more. She noticed how adults whispered, how phones buzzed and went silent, how my daughter checked the locks twice before bed, even though she'd never done that before. One night, Lily climbed into my lap with a book she didn't really want read. "Grandma," she said, tracing the edge of the page, "is it my fault she's in trouble?" That question nearly broke me. "No," I said immediately. "None of this is because of you. Adults are responsible for their choices, always." She nodded, but her eyes stayed searching. "She said I was helping." I took her face gently in my hands. She was wrong. Helping never feels scary. That seemed to settle something in her, at least a little. The call came on a Thursday morning. The jury had reached a decision. In the courtroom, the air felt heavy enough to press against my lungs. The sitter sat perfectly still, hands folded, eyes forward. She didn't look at me this time. "Guilty," the foreperson said. Once, then again, and again. Each word landed clean and final. My daughter gripped my hand so tightly I lost feeling in my fingers. I didn't mind. I needed the anchor. The sitter closed her eyes, just for a second. When she opened them, whatever fire had lived there before was gone. Sentencing came later. The judge spoke calmly, clearly, without cruelty or softness. "You abused a position of trust," he said. "You used a child as a means to resolve your own pain. Trauma explains behavior, but it does not excuse it." When the sentence was read, I didn't feel joy. I felt relief. Deep, bone-level relief. Afterwards, as we walked out of the courthouse into the afternoon light, my daughter stopped suddenly and leaned into me. "It's over," she said, like she was testing the words. "It's done," I corrected gently. "Healing comes next." That evening, Lily asked if we could bake cookies, not because she wanted cookies, but because baking meant normal. It meant flour on the counter and music playing softly and laughter that didn't have to be careful. As she pressed a cookie cutter into the dough, she looked up at me. "Grandma," she said, tracing the edge of the page, "is it your fault she's in trouble?" I paused. "I think," I said slowly, "that knowing takes time, and sometimes people don't learn until it's too late." She considered that, then nodded. And in that quiet kitchen, with the smell of sugar and warmth all around us, I realized something important. Justice had spoken, but the real work, ours, was only just beginning. The house didn't magically feel safe again just because the verdict was in. Healing doesn't flip on like a light. It creeps in, tests you, retreats, then comes back softer. Lily started therapy the following week, a small office with beanbag chairs and shelves full of puzzles that pretended everything was fine. The therapist had a gentle voice and patient eyes. Lily liked her. That mattered. Still, nights were hard. Some evenings Lily would wake up crying, convinced she'd tasted something bitter in her dreams. Other nights she'd pad into my room and stand there silently until I noticed her shadow. "Can I sleep here?" she'd ask. Always. One night, while Lily slept between us again, my daughter whispered, "I don't know how I didn't see it." I said, "You weren't supposed to. That's how predators survive. They hide in plain sight." The word hung there. Predator. Ugly. Accurate. Later that week, I went back into the closet and pulled out the rest of my husband's things. Papers, old cards, photographs that now felt staged. I found more emails, more proof, enough to shatter whatever doubt still clung to me. I didn't tell my daughter everything. Some truths don't need to be passed down. Instead, I took the box outside and sat on the porch until sunset, deciding what stayed and what didn't. Memory is selective. Survival requires it to be. That night, Lily surprised me. She poured herself a glass of milk, walked over to me, and held it up. "Can you watch me drink it?" she asked. I smiled, even as my throat tightened. "Of course." She drank it slowly, carefully, then smiled back. "I think I'm getting braver," she said. I kissed the top of her head. "I know you are." But bravery doesn't erase the past. It just teaches you how to carry it. And I knew the next part of this story, the consequences, would reach farther than our front door. The consequences didn't arrive all at once. They came in quiet ways, in sideways looks from neighbors who'd heard pieces of the story but not all of it, in whispers at the school office, in the way my daughter stiffened whenever someone mentioned babysitters or help or needing a break. One afternoon, a letter arrived from the court. I opened it at the kitchen table while Lily did homework nearby. My daughter watched my face instead of the envelope. "She'll be required to attend treatment," I said after reading it. "No contact with children, long-term supervision." My daughter exhaled slowly. Good. I nodded, but inside I felt something else too. Not pity, not forgiveness, finality. Later that evening, Lily asked if she could draw a picture for the therapist. She worked on it quietly, tongue caught between her teeth in concentration. When she handed it to me, I didn't expect what I saw. It was our house, big windows, 3 figures holding hands in the front yard, no shadows. "Who's that?" I asked, pointing. "That's us," she said, "and that's the house after." "After what?" "After the scary part," she said simply. Children have a way of cutting straight to the truth. That night, after Lily was asleep, my daughter sat with me on the couch. "Mom," she said, hesitating, "do you ever think about forgiving him?" She didn't say his name. She didn't have to. I thought for a long moment. "I think forgiveness is personal," I said, "and sometimes peace comes from understanding, not excusing." She nodded. "I don't want Lily growing up thinking betrayal is something you just swallow." Neither do I. Silence settled between us, not heavy this time, just thoughtful. I realized then that the biggest consequence wasn't prison time or court records or ruined reputations. It was this: we would never be careless with trust again. And that, strangely, felt like strength, not fear. Strength. Time did what it always does. It moved forward, whether we felt ready or not. School mornings slowly stopped feeling tense. Lily began talking more again, not all at once, but in bursts. Stories about classmates, complaints about math, small worries that felt age-appropriate instead of heavy. One afternoon, she came home excited about a class presentation. "I volunteered," she said proudly. That might not sound like much, but to me it was everything. Volunteering meant raising her hand, being seen, trusting that nothing bad would happen if she did. Therapy sessions became lighter, less talking about fear, more about confidence. The therapist told us Lily was rebuilding her sense of control, learning that her voice mattered. At home, we set new rules together, not rules born of fear, but clarity. No secrets that made your stomach hurt. No routines you couldn't question. No obedience that required silence. Lily helped write them on a piece of poster board and hung them on our bedroom wall like a promise. My daughter started laughing again, too. Real laughter, the kind that surprises you when it comes back. One evening while we were washing dishes, she looked at me and said, "You saved her." I shook my head. "We protected her," I said, "together." But later, alone in my room, I let myself feel it. The relief, the grief, the quiet pride of having trusted my instincts when it would have been easier not to. I thought about how close I'd come to brushing off that first moment of silence. How easily I could have said, "She's just tired," and gone on with my day. That realization stayed with me, because danger doesn't always announce itself loudly. Sometimes it whispers, and sometimes the bravest thing you can do is listen. By the time spring came, the house felt like itself again. Windows open, shoes kicked off by the door, music drifting from room to room, Lily dancing in the living room without worrying who was watching. One afternoon, while we were planting flowers in the backyard, Lily paused and looked up at me. "Grandma," she said, "do you think she's sorry?" I knew who she meant. "I think she's sorry about her pain," I said carefully. "I don't know if she understands yours." Lily considered that, then nodded. "That's okay," she said. "I don't need her to." That might have been the bravest thing she'd ever said. Later that week, my daughter told me she'd been offered a better local position, one that didn't require travel, one that allowed her to be home for dinner most nights. I said yes, she said, without even thinking. We celebrated with takeout and a movie on the couch. Ordinary joy, the best kind. That night, as I tucked Lily into bed, she hugged me tightly. "You always check first," she said sleepily. "You always make sure." "I always will," I promised. When I turned out the light, I lingered in the doorway, watching her breathe. Not too heavy, not too shallow, just right. And for the first time in a long while, I didn't feel afraid of the dark, because the hardest truths had already come to light, and we were still standing. Some endings don't announce themselves. They don't arrive with speeches or dramatic goodbyes. They slip in quietly, almost unnoticed, and you realize later that something heavy is no longer there. Months passed. The memory of that tea faded first. Lily mentioned it once in passing, the way kids mention old nightmares. "I don't remember what it tasted like anymore," she said while doing homework at the kitchen table. I smiled at that. "Good," I told her. "That's how it should be." Life settled into a new rhythm, a gentler one, not careless, but aware. We laughed easily, but we also listened more closely, to tone, to silence, to the space between words. Sometimes, late at night, I still thought about the woman who had sat in our living room and smiled, about how pain, when left unattended, can twist into something dangerous, about how the past doesn't stay buried just because we want it to. But I thought about something else, too. I thought about instinct, about the moment I felt something was wrong and chose not to ignore it, about how one quiet decision changed the direction of 3 lives. There's a photo on my nightstand now, the 3 of us at the park. Lily on the swings, laughing, my daughter shielding her eyes from the sun, me behind the camera, steady hands, clear heart. No shadows in that picture. Healing didn't erase what happened. It softened it, rounded the sharp edges, turned it into something we could carry without bleeding. And if there's a lesson in all of this, one worth holding on to, it's this. Pay attention to the quiet moments. Believe children when they hesitate. Trust the voice inside you that whispers something isn't right. Because love doesn't control. Care doesn't demand silence. And protection sometimes begins with nothing more than noticing that a house has gone too quiet. If this story stayed with you, if any part of it felt familiar or stirred something quiet inside you, please know you're not alone. Take a moment to like this video so it can reach others who may need to hear it. Subscribe to the channel for more real-life inspired stories about trust, survival, and quiet strength. And if you feel safe, share your thoughts in the comments. Your voice matters more than you think. Stories don't end when the video does. If you believe storytelling can protect, awaken, and heal, subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next one. Every subscription helps this channel keep telling the stories others are afraid to tell. Have you ever ignored a small warning or listened just in time? I read every comment. Until next time, trust your instincts, protect the ones you love, and never ignore the silence.